Our buddy David Harsanyi of National Review back in the mix here to tell us what he's seeing in the realm of politics, culture, America, all that good stuff. David, great to have you back.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
So, what'd you think about last night, man?
I thought Pence won convincingly in almost every area you can win a debate. I didn't think Trump had won, though I didn't think it was as bad a performance as many did, but I think that clearly Pence was the winner here on both specifics of policy and both in general pushing back. As someone online I saw said that Pence is better at defending Trump's record than Trump is. I think that that's a pretty fair assessment sometimes. The way he kept his cool, and I think part of that also has to do with Kamala Harris not being perhaps as likable as perhaps some other candidates.
Yeah, well, that's not surprising to anybody. I mean, we ran this experiment already of do even Democrats really like Kamala Harris? The answer is no. I want to pose this question to you because people have been asking me this, and I gave my assessment at the beginning of the show, but I want to know what you think here. Why did they pick Kamala Harris? Like, what was the thinking behind this? It feels in retrospect now, especially after last night, like that wasn't a very strong move.
I think obviously part of it is that, it has a lot to do with identity politics. And I think that not to say that there aren't good Black women candidates out there, but to just say that a few months before you're making this decision without seeing who you mesh with best or how candidates are going to perform puts you in a pretty tight spot. So obviously, like you mentioned or alluded to, she was not popular with Democrats. She had a horrible primary. So I don't know why he picked her. I think it hasn't worked out. We don't see much of her. I kind of forgot she was even running until yesterday, frankly, for weeks. Her positions are out of sync with the sort of what he's trying to project, this idea that they're moderates. I mean, she's taken left-wing positions on the environment, on guns, on a ton of other things that simply are, I think, out of sync with most Americans. So I don't know. That's a long answer. I don't know. I don't know.
It just feels like to me, I mean, except for the identity politics piece, and I know when we talk about Elizabeth Warren identity politics, you and I, the jokes start writing themselves, right? But if you wanted a female vice president who was actually popular with Democrat voters, who did have substantial support, Kamala was never popular with the Democrats. And the idea that she would now be useful. But no, I think we also need to remember that
she's the governor of California. I mean, she's the senator of California. So it's not like she has no support. I don't know that Elizabeth Warren. Go on.
Maybe Warren would have been a bad pick, but I just mean in the Democrat primary, Warren was number 3 behind Bernie and Biden, especially toward the end. And Kamala never got that much help. And your point about California, I think, is interesting because, yes, she can appeal to people in California. I think the same way that I think that everyone needs to remember there are some states where you have to appeal to beyond just your own party. California is obviously not one of them, but it's also going to be a more far left electorate than you'd see even in some of the other states that are at least closer to being purple. But that's a fair point. Kamala won the. Do we even remember who did she run against?
Right. Well, obviously, I think she probably had primary candidates. I don't remember them, but it's not like
that's what I mean. Yeah,
they don't run against a Republican, which is why these people who are always talking about all the Democratic voters who come out. Yeah, Republicans have no reason to come out in California for statewide elections because there's no one to vote for. So it's a little different. But you make a good point in that you don't really need Harris because California is going to be yours anyway. So why not pick someone perhaps who appeals to, middle America or the South or something like that, try to pick up a state here or there with a candidate, though that hasn't really worked very well since, Gore lost Tennessee, right? I don't know how much that actually matters, but.
Yeah, well, that's the other question. Other than the fact that there's, I think, a realistic thought that Kamala Harris might actually have to take over the presidency if Biden wins this election and not that far off. I think that is, look, the guy's going to be almost 80. Like, he's president of the United States. This is real, right? I mean, when you get to this age, and Democrats have kind of learned recently that You can't just keep wishing people to be in, infinite good health for as long as you want them to be for political reasons. Never mind what's happened here with Trump, but it seems to me maybe the Democrat, it doesn't really, the vice president, maybe it doesn't really matter that much usually. And I don't think the debate will matter that much either. Now that I've spent a lot of time analyzing it and pulling apart in terms of who people vote for, but do you think it does?
I don't think it matters a ton. It might matter more because of what you just pointed out. You have two older people as president, and not just old, considerably older people than you usually have running, either running for president or even in the presidency. So it might matter to some extent. I think it's more like this. If you just perform admirably or don't embarrass yourself, nothing happens. But you can hurt yourself by having a really bad performance. So I'm not sure that Harris had that terrible of a performance enough to change any of the dynamics, but it certainly seems to me like she's not going to ever win a presidential election. She may have become president one day, but I don't think she's ever going to win one. She's just not that good a debater. I noticed that, during the primaries as well. She's just not that good. Her canned lines come off canned, and her sort of like fake indignation and stuff it's just really obvious, at least to me. Sometimes I'm out of sync with people.
Look, it felt very staged. It felt very staged to me, and I was willing to admit it. Obama, when he was in his zone, when he was doing his thing, it appeals to a lot of Democrats, and there are a lot of other folks who they liked the Obama way of being on stage and the speeches and everything else. And even Joe Biden gets away. I think now that he's kind of older and a little more tired, it seems a bit more forced. But his whole rolled up sleeves, Joe from Amtrak. I appreciate that you've put it out. The Acela is like a very high end train, train life. This is not like the way Joe Biden, makes it sound. It's like he's wearing overalls and he's there shoveling coal with the engineers or something. That's not Joe Biden. Good old Amtrak Joe. But with Kamala, there was no.
I was just gonna say he pays $20,000. He pays $20,000 a month for his mansion here in McLean or wherever in Virginia. But I just wanted to quickly say the difference between those two is this. It's the Costanza thing. If you believe your lie is true, it becomes true. And that's what I think Biden is. I think he believes the stories he tells. I think he believes that he's a sort of working class Joe. So it always comes off as more authentic than Harris, who I don't think believes anything she's saying, right? I think there's an authenticity to Biden because he actually believes the fairy tale he's built around about himself, which has gone on now for 30 years. It's like the incredible notion that Harris repeated yesterday that Biden is running because of what happened in Charlottesville. He's been running for president since 1987. He's probably even before that. It is just a lie, and everyone knows it, and she knows it when she says it.
Well, I also think the whole Charlottesville thing is a lie, and Pence did a good job of finally really addressing it and saying the president has Jewish grandchildren, so calling him a neo-Nazi is pretty gross, and beyond, or the saying that he has sympathy for neo-Nazis is pretty disgusting. And they also leave. His daughter, one of his daughters, is a convert to Judaism as well. But beyond that, he said in the speech, I totally condemn neo-Nazis and the bad people, but I'm just talking about the statue debate. He clarified in the statement they always cite exactly what he was saying. It wasn't a later clarification. It was, as you know, the equivalent of a paragraph down in the transcript, just so everyone's very clear on what he's saying. And he's Trump, so he's imprecise with his words. And they've just, I feel like that's been one of the fundamental dishonesties that the media and the Democrats have run with this whole time. And it's really a foundational lie of the resistance. It's that and Russia collusion are the two things they dug in on. And they're both complete fabrications. And yet we're supposed to take them seriously when they, even at this stage, continue to cite Russian interference in the election and Trump's Charlottesville comments.
It's even worse than that in a way, because she framed the Charlottesville comment as if Trump said it while the neo-Nazis were marching about them specifically. And then she tied it into this larger story of him saying things about soldiers and so on. But the way she framed it was even worse than the lie itself is usually told. And it is a lie. And you're right, though. I mean, should have been a slam dunk for Trump at the time to be more clear and precise about what he meant. But still, he didn't say what they claim he says, which has become so prevalent that it's everywhere all the time, and no one will fact check it. Really, I mean, on the in the media, they'll just repeat it. And now she gets to say things like Trump walked up to the graves of soldiers and spit on them, which is also probably not true either. We have no real corroboration of that story, but yet they can just say it. They work in sync with the Atlantic magazine or whoever reported that, and they do this constantly. And it's very hard to fight back against. And I think you're right. Pence did a good job of pointing those things out as the debate went along. And he also did a good job of posing questions that Susan Page, who everyone says, or most people say did a good job, I don't think that that's true, wouldn't ask. I mean, it's like...
Yeah, well, she didn't ask about the Supreme Court, which was stunning. She didn't ask.
Right. The court packing question was a very good moment for Pence, where she wouldn't answer, and then she went off on some ridiculous, race-obsessed...
diversity rant. Yeah.
Diversity rant. He should have done more of that. That I think is what Republicans should be doing. So, like when they ask you, would you ban Vice President Pence? Would you ban abortion in Indiana? You should turn to Kamala Harris and say, give me the single restriction on abortion you support. Do you support state-funded abortions until the 9th month? Because they're never going to ask that question of the other candidate. Never.
Yeah, you're right. And I think that's important. And I spoke with Jesse Kelly about this last night right afterwards. And, because he said she was horrible. And I said, well, the moderator was horrible, but it felt like in comparison to the Chris Wallace white supremacist question. I mean, that for me is just, that's like, hit the button, nuke it all. I can't handle this anymore. I mean, for me, that was a total debacle. But you're right. I mean, the moderator, we are so used to the bias and so used to the journos doing what they do that we don't even really ever step back and say, hold on a second. Why can't they ask a question like that? They'd ask questions like that of Republicans.
No, we have become so used to allowing them to frame the issues, talk about the issues that they find important, that we don't talk about the issues that we do. Now, whether he wants to ban abortion or not, overturning Roe would only bring it back to the states. Now let's have an argument about abortion. But when they always point out that Roe is, overturning it is so unpopular. Well, let's see what polls say about people who want state-funded abortions in the 9th month. I assure you that that's going to be unpopular as well, but they never bring it up. And even the sort of words they use, like, pro-choice or whatever it is, it's always skewing in one direction. I'm not sure how to fix that. I don't know what to do other than taking over a debate and asking your own questions, which is why I think these debates are ridiculous anyway. Let them fight. It is ridiculous to have all these rules. Like, they're in the middle of a good conversation and someone has to butt in and say, oh, it's the 2-minute deadline on this question so we can talk about global warming or whatever. I mean, it's just insane. It's just not the way
people they really should just have people. They should just have somebody who's sitting there to, I guess, try to keep some degree of equal time and let them have at it, because my least favorite thing from the debate was every time it felt like it was getting good, there was this, but we got to get to this other thing. Why? I don't give a crap about global warming. I don't want to hear about this nonsense. Let them actually have the debate they're having.
Or have a number of debates and have them talk about different issues per debate. You should for instance, why are you asking different questions of both candidates? Throw up an issue and let's see what they have to say about it. I just don't understand why you have to lead the conversation in that way. Pence had better questions than the moderator from the Republican point of view, but still let Kamala Harris ask her own questions if she wants. Maybe that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, I like it. David Arsani, everybody, nationalreview.com for his latest. Check out his very clear thinking and clear writing at nationalreview.com. David, thanks so much for joining.
Thank you, sir.
Got to throw a discussion of COVID into the mix here before we get to a roll call. Kamala went after the administration. Listen, look, this is their single biggest area of attack, and it's really all about COVID's terrible. We know that. It's hurt the American people very badly. 200,000 plus people have died. How many of them died from COVID directly versus with COVID? That's a discussion we'll continue to have going forward, but it's clearly a lot of people that have died from COVID-19, and it's done terrible things to our economy. It's true of a lot of countries around the world, but they want to blame Trump for all of it, and Kamala Harris is certainly part of that effort. Play 16.
Trump administration's perspective and approach to China has resulted in the loss of American lives, American jobs, and America's standing. There's a weird obsession that President Trump has had with getting rid of whatever accomplishment was achieved by President Obama and Vice President Biden. For example, they created within the White House an office that basically was responsible for monitoring pandemics. They got rid of it.
Not true.
There was a team of disease experts that President Obama and Vice President Biden dispatched to China to monitor what is now predictable and what might happen. They pulled them out. We now are looking at 210,000 Americans who have lost their lives.
All because of Trump is what you're supposed to take from this. So that's insane, but they believe it, or at least they want enough people to believe it so that they can become the regime in charge here. First of all, what she's saying is not true, but as Vice President Pence pointed out, they did not scrap all these disease experts. We have a CDC. We have an NIH. We have an intelligence community with, hundreds of thousands of people running around in it. Okay? What exactly are we supposed to think was going to happen here? Oh, if only we had a handful of people in the NSC who specialized in pandemic, what? They would have known more than Fauci? They would have known more than the other experts? I mean, you got experts all over the place. And honestly, most of them were kind of worthless. What have they been able to tell us? People forget that we didn't know how this was going to affect particularly the elderly and the more vulnerable until it really hit Italy very badly. And at that point, it had already spread to American shores and was anyway, just lying about it. You know who is to blame for it, though? Pence is right about this. China. Play 18.
China is to blame for the coronavirus. And President Trump is not happy about it. He's made that very clear, made it clear again today. China and the World Health Organization did not play straight with the American people. They did not let our personnel into China to get information on the coronavirus until the middle of February.
Finally, some honesty. I mean, the vice president did a phenomenal job. I know we spent a lot of time talking about it today, but the guy deserves a big high five, and he really showed what the other side of this debate's all about, which is misdirection, lies, obfuscating, stonewalling, and doesn't really have very much to offer the American people. The Trump record is something that they can be proud of. The Biden-Harris record is, well, individually, and then what they would do going forward is something that they just can't be honest with the American people about. That's the biggest single takeaway from all of this.
It's time for roll call.
Roll call, everybody. So glad we have roll call so I can hear from all of you across the country about what you think about the show and just what's going on in your lives. But also, it's nice to hear stories about what's going on in other places because we have so much less contact with each other. I do so much less traveling now and don't get to get around. And it's a shame. I like being able to bring you some stories and tell you about things, but everyone's in kind of work from home lockdown mode here in New York. New Jersey, I don't know what it's like in other places, so I'm glad to hear from all of you. I think it's a little bit better, but it looks like my brother is going to be moving down to Texas the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to there's going to be a Sexton in Texas a couple of weeks from now, so I'll be visiting him. He's going to be in Austin. So it's a KLBJ. I know I've been promising you folks for a long time, but I will be telling you at some point I'm down for the weekend, and I'm going to be, eating some barbecue and hanging out downtown. You can all come and I'd say first round's on me, but there could be a lot of them, and that might get very expensive. And, gotta watch the expenses during the pandemic. But, we'll see. We'll make it happen. Facebook.com/Buck Sexton on the Facebook. Instagram, Buck Sexton. Please send us your messages there, and let's get to it. Andrew writes, hey, Buck, Marine Corps lawyer here. I wonder if Republicans in Congress could propose a constitutional amendment to establish 9 Supreme Court justices. I think it would have wide public support. And then maybe Joe Biden will answer whether he supports it. Love the show. Keep up the good work, brother. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for writing in. Thank you for your service, sir. I think that, it's a good idea what you raised, but I just know how the Democrats would probably dodge it very, very early on, very, very quickly. And that's just to say, well, of course it'll be not. We don't need it, Andrew. That's what they would say. We don't need it. We're 9. It's going to be 9. Sure. I need to say, well, Buck, but they've said that maybe they'd pack the court. Yeah, but that's just what they're saying to try to get their base happy right now. They can't tell people what they would really do right now. So I think they would avoid it. Just like, look what Kamala's doing. She is straight up saying, no, not going to answer. No, not going to give you an answer. Huh? How does that work? Well, that's where we are. But yeah, man, good thought, Andrew. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Kevin, Buck, I run off the road and die because my fogged up glasses when I exhaled while wearing my required mask while driving for Uber. Is that a COVID-related death? Kevin, first of all, please, safety first, Kevin. Take care of yourself. We need everyone. We need everyone on the team, first and foremost, to take good care of themselves and make sure they're healthy and safe. And as for, COVID-related deaths, the media has no interest in finding out whether this is true or not. The media has no interest in finding out whether there is, in fact, an inflated number of COVID deaths because of the way that they're categorizing them. There have been doctors who have come forward and said, yes, sure enough, it is the case that we are counting things as COVID-related deaths that are not COVID-related deaths, but they don't care. The media doesn't matter. They're just going to keep pretending that this is not an issue because for right now, and this will switch. So there'll be far fewer deaths attributable to a Biden administration under changed rules of COVID, not actually any response, because of the way they tabulate the numbers. The fix is in, folks. The fix is in. We all know it. Chris, howdy, Mr. Sexton. Love the show. Any way you can post your bit on Obama reading off a teleprompter, that is no doubt in the top 5 funniest things I've heard in my life. Your discussion on that was awesome. It'll serve as a great pick-me-up when needed. Keep doing what you're doing, and thank you for it. Well, thank you so much, Chris. I'm really, really pleased that was so amusing. Mark, which one did I do? What was that? What did I do? Mark has to remind me of what I say on the show the day of as soon as I'm done. I'm like Will Ferrell in Old School, where it's like he prepares for the debate, jams it all in his head, and then afterwards he's like, he doesn't remember anything. What did I do?
I have a feeling this was before my time, and this was in the Obama administration. Probably an OSS member here.
So it wasn't recent then, yeah? Because I don't know when I did this. I mean, I don't know. Done a lot of funny things, folks. I don't know what to tell you. It's hard to keep up. What can I say? Sorry. Chris, we'll try to find out what this was, what I did. And I'm okay, team. I'm going to tell you this too. And Mark is going to groan, but I give you my word. We are days away from the next Shields High podcast. Days away, not weeks, days from a Shields High podcast. Right at the height of the election, I know, but I feel like we could all use something that's not election related to listen to. It's already the first episode. The first new episode is 75% recorded. So I'm not. No, Mark, don't worry. No, we don't want to hear it from Mark about how I've been promising for months and months. I'm just telling you folks right now, it is recorded and it will be out relatively.
See, now that you've said it, you're going to procrastinate even more.
Let's hope not.
I would have preferred you just didn't say anything.
Yeah, I should have just
told me when it was done.
I should have just surprised everybody with it. But now this is like I've made a deadline for myself that even I can't escape this one.
Buck, you made a deadline 6 months ago, just for the record.
No, but this is like a real deadline. This is a deadline that, it's like it's a deadline, not a, come on, maybe. I'm just saying, we're going to get it done. And people can listen to the history, and I think they'll like it. And I've got a whole bunch of others in my mind. And once I get moving with it, then I think once you get those juices flowing, then it's easy to keep the history train rolling. Dan, here we go. Buck, I'm a professional software engineer with my own business. I manage enterprise-scale clients, including a very well-known media company, a distinguished university, and a handful of Silicon Valley startups. If I was as wrong as Anthony Fauci at any point with my clients, I would be laughed out of the industry. We are led by, as you would say, unimpressive people. I have never heard of Dr. Fauci before COVID, and the doctors I am familiar with, such as Dr. Salk, Pasteur, and Freud, all have considerable accomplishments in their field. Even Dr. Drew or Ken Jeong are more reputable at this point. And most importantly, please ask producer Mark about Dr. Fauci's, not calling him doctor anymore, throwing motion. How can we entrust the safety of our nation to a man who throws like that? Producer Mark, we defer to your expertise. Does the man throw in a way that is not to be trusted?
Well, yeah. I mean, you remember the opening day first pitch for the Nationals. He threw it to first base when he was trying to throw it to home plate, basically. It was terrible.
Isn't he like in his mid-late 70s, though?
Yeah, but if you're in somewhat good health, you should be able to throw a ball straight.
I think that's fair. He also was the captain of my high school's basketball team. And isn't that
a different type of? Maybe you give him a basketball instead of a baseball next time.
He was the captain of the of the basketball team. He was 5'7", which is no. I think he played center as well, which was interesting. He's the center. He's captain. And he's 5'7". So.
Huh.
I don't know. Yeah.
I guess in that league, they don't grow them tall.
Yeah, because 5'7" for a basketball center is not particularly large. Deborah, since all the Democrats are so worried about having a hearing for Judge Barrett, is there some reason why they can't just take a vote if Mitch McConnell has the votes? Thank you. Deborah, I've been saying all along, I think that's what they should do. The hearing is coming up on Monday, so there certainly will be some fireworks there. The hearing is coming up. And, yeah, we'll have to see. I don't know. That's where we're at. Bob. Back to your thing, Deborah. I want to believe that. I think I just kind of did a Kamala too there. I was like, the hearing's coming up. I mean, look, it's been a long show. What can I tell you? The hearing's coming up, and it's going to be a hearing, and we're going to hear things at it. It's sort of like I was Kamala on the debate stage, just spewing nonsense. I think they should go right to a vote. I wish that they weren't going to open the door for the assaults on ACB. I don't see how they're going to be able to stop ACB, even with what they're going to try to do. It just won't work. Even with a Democrat opposition that would break any rule of decorum, decency, morality, or ethics to stop her, I don't see the pathway. What are they going to say, that she was a high school rapist too? I mean, they could try. I don't think that will work. So what are they going to go with? They're going to call her a racist? Yes, the woman who adopted 2 children from Haiti and loved them as her own and raised them, within her own family is a racist. Sure, that's going to work really well. Those are the usual. And look, Kamala last night, I will say this, didn't really get to play much of either the racist card against Pence or the sexist card the media tried to play for her, and she was being a little bit snippy with Pence, but it wasn't that much of it. So maybe ACB just gets through, but I'll just tell you this right now, and I will not forget it. Kavanaugh was just sailing through. Kavanaugh was totally qualified, sterling resume. Everything about this guy should have been just easy as easy can be to get him through. And then the coordinated assault with the 3 fake accusers of Kavanaugh all coming forward to lie about him and call him a rapist and try to ruin his reputation. And, think about what they were really doing. They wanted Brett Kavanaugh's wife to think differently about him, every night when they would go to sleep. They wanted Kavanaugh's wife to think that she had married a rapist. I mean, this is the most disgusting. Look, the Kavanaugh hearings, they created so many wartime conservatives and changed the perspective that many of us have about the other side, where we just realize they're totally ruthless. They'll do whatever. They don't care. And you can either fight back or just let them have their way. Those are your options. The third option about triangulation or conciliation, the Mitt Romney, John McCain, and yes, even George W. Bush approach at some level. Not good. Not good. All right, more roll call. We got Bob up here. Hey, Buck and Mark, I think Trump's message after leaving Walter Reed yesterday that we should not allow fear of COVID, we should not let fear of COVID control us is very powerful and will resonate with a huge number of Americans. I think the Democrats also realize that, and I believe the media will freak out about it as an attempt to make the statement radioactive, try to scare Trump into toning down or abandoning the message. I am concerned they might succeed. I believe it is a winning message, and he needs to keep it front and center. It speaks to the American spirit and American history. Who are we, to borrow the Dems' favorite phrase? And I think it ties directly with economic recovery. Knowing Trump as you do you think he and his team will resist the message and keep pounding, resist the pressure and keep pounding this message home? Yes, I think Trump will keep hammering this message, Bob. I'm very confident of that, and I've spoken to some of his top people, and they're also very confident about that. So, yeah, I would say the answer is yes. I would say it's very likely that the president will stay right where he needs to be with this. Kevin, Buck, when I run off the road and die because my glasses... Oh, I'm sorry. We already did that one. Where we go here? Kyle, Buck, on Tuesday's show, you talked about the anti-cop hate movement in the Democrat Party, while politicians talk out of both sides of their mouths, like Biden, of their masked mouths, in order to not totally seem insane to moderate voters. It reminds me of the anti-military protest during the Iraq War. I remember being subject to some very nasty comments and gestures when in uniform from what were obvious libs, while Democrat politicians back then were doing the same rhetorical two-step you see now about supporting the troops while opposing the war. It was bull. Like more like resent the warfighter because the war is a useful political cudgel against Republicans. Our unit was near a college campus, and one night a brick was thrown through a large window with the words, "Don't forget, we'll always hate you," spray painted on the remaining window. I haven't forgotten. These are the types of people who protest cops now. It's disgusting. Kyle, thank you for your service, and I think you're correct. I think that a lot of we support the troops but hate the war. No, a lot of them actually had disdain for the troops too. If look in this country, and this is why there are attacks on Trump and saying that he doesn't like the military. It's just so obvious and so fake. In this country, if you don't respect the military, there's about a 99% chance that you are a Democrat, a leftist, and maybe 99.9. That's where cop hatred lives, and that's where military hatred lives, on the left of our political spectrum. It's just the truth. It's just the way that it is. So I think you see that, Kyle. I'm sorry that some people show disrespect to you, but the decent, patriotic Americans who listen to this show cannot thank you enough for doing what you did, serving in uniform, and being the best of the American family. We appreciate it. Matt, I don't hear much about taking back the House this election. Is this a foregone conclusion that Republicans won't take control? Matt, I've heard about it, but you're right. It hasn't gotten a lot of attention. And I think it's because they don't want to raise expectations of maybe a unified Republican government and then have to obviously scale that back a whole lot if it doesn't end up coming to fruition. So I don't know. I don't know if it's really looking that good for us right now. I haven't seen the polls recently and haven't seen a macro analysis of the House. My understanding is that it's probably going to be a tough one for us to take back the House. That's what as I understand it, it's probably going to be tough for that to happen. So we shall see. But I will look more into that one, Matt, because you're right. That's not real. A lot of focus on obviously the presidential race and on the Senate a bit too. Not so much on the House race, and that's going to be up for grabs as well. John, Buck, first off, Pence killed it in the debate. Second, I used to subscribe to the prediction that the election will be close, but recently, after seeing a group of these Trump parades, yard signs, record new gun owners, record new black gun owners, and like in 2016, the Trump crowd versus the opposition crowd, I believe Trump will sweep on Election Day as long as he stays strong. All of these new gun owners are taking their safety into their own hands. They're not going to vote for the party that wants to ban them. Let's see. John, I'd like to think that, your observations here will turn into a huge Trump wave. Let's just say that I like where your head's at, but I think it's going to be a very tight election. But I hope you're right and I'm wrong. Remember how I told you there probably wasn't going to be a second debate? It's looking like that might be the case, though. So I do tend to get this stuff right. Just going to say that. Remember, people asked me back in August. I said, there'll be one. But that may be it. And that may be it. We'll see. All right, team. Thanks so much. Please pass the buck. Tell someone this week to download the Buck Sexton Show wherever they listen to podcasts. Until next time, shields high.